go now, Matthew?
Yes, we should be good to go.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody. It's the first time we meet around this table this new year. And I can see, and I hope everybody's doing well. Calling the meeting to order. Could I have someone approve the agenda, please?
I will.
Thank you, Leanne. Second by Jim. Thank you. Any declarations of interest that need to be spoken of at this point? Very good. Moving on. The minutes were part of your package. If everybody has had a chance to look at the last meeting was November of 2019. Any issues with that? If somebody could move that the Planning Advisory Committee minutes of November 19th, 2019 be accepted as presented.
I so move.
Thank you, Jim. Seconded by, come on, Leslie. Oh, welcome, Brett. We just got started, so we're just on to the meat of the agenda at 5.1. The recommendation that the Planning Advisory Committee recommend that Council approve site plan control agreement 950 Industrial Road, file number SPC 2020-01, subject to the following conditions, as you can see in the agenda. And with that, Sean, if I could get you to, oh, sorry, could I have somebody move it beforehand? For discussion. Thank you, Leslie. Seconded by Jim. Thank you.
Sure.
With that, we have our manager of building and bylaw with us, Sean Merriman. It's his report, and he's going to provide us details with the recommendation.
Yeah, CAI Inc. is over at 950 Industrial Drive. And this past fall, they started doing a project in order to make the site more environmentally friendly. Working with the fire department and the Ministry of Environment and myself, they started processing a thing where they were creating a catchment basin type system to help if there was ever any spill when they were unloading a truck. Originally, when the plans were starting to go through, they thought about doing a system where they would basically trap the water and then like use an interceptor on it and then release it to our system. But then over time, it became more apparent that it was more cost effective for them to simply catch it in a containment system and then ship it off site to be treated, regardless of what was in it. But in order to do that and to make sure that they didn't overfill the system too quickly, they wanted to make sure that they covered up the pad that's built to catch it. So basically that they approached everyone got on the same page, and the Ministry of Environment was extremely happy with that solution. And as such, when they applied, it became obvious that the building was 103 square meters. Of course, as you know from our site plan control bylaw, it kicks in as soon as there's any sort of addition more than 50 square meters. So basically it kicked in. However, because it was for the Ministry of Environment and the fire and everything else, we did issue them a conditional permit at their request so that the plan could go ahead. It's basically almost done now. Site plan's basically the last thing that's left. It didn't make the site produce anymore. It's simply just a safety feature for what's already there.
And before we get into the discussion, from what I understand, Sean, it is pretty much a recommendation by the Ministry of Environment. Yeah,
basically they definitely were on board with this, and that's part of why we moved ahead with it. Like I said, it just makes sense to make things safer all the way around whenever you have a chance. And CAI has been very diligent in making sure that this process has moved as fast as it could, considering you're dealing with the Ministry of Environment.
In a pandemic.
Well, yes.
Okay, could I have anyone needing more clarification, questions, concerns, comments? Jim?
Teresa, yes. Sean, conformity with OP and zoning, it does conform to both towns' documents?
Yes, yes, it's in an area already zoned industrial and it meets all the zoning setbacks and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
Initially, when I saw the fabric covered structure, I didn't really understand what that was, but it meant a phone call to Matthew, and he explained that it was better referenced perhaps as a catch basin. And it's underneath the ground, obviously, right?
Well, the catch basin is, yes, but like I said, what triggered it is actually the fabric covered structure that's above it. Think of it like a really strong steel framed tent is basically the best way to think of it.
So if I may, Chair, that structure is just to keep moisture, rain, water, snow, everything out of the catch basin, Sean?
Yes, correct, Jim.
Okay, thank you.
I have to applaud the company in doing so, because as you mentioned, Sean, it's not going to increase sales or whatnot, but in the replying or responding, if you will, to the Ministry of Environment's regulation or request, it's nice to see that there's no that they're going ahead and doing that, right?
Yeah, like I said, this is truly about environmental safety. It's not about, I mean, and don't get me wrong, that it's the company that proposed it. I mean, the Ministry of Environment was glad to support it, though.
Okay. Any other comments from anybody?
Just one real quick one, just as was mentioned, I think to you, Madam Chair, and the CAO a little earlier. It's nice to see, like, regardless of the rationale and how this is going forward, it's nice to see CAI investing in their facility in Prescott. They've been a good tenants or good residents up in the north end there for quite some time. And nice to see that they're still investing in the town, and that site is still a going concern for them.
Indeed. Okay, with that, unless somebody else has any other questions or comments, with that, I will have somebody, oh, sorry, we did that, right? So now it's all in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Thanks. Moving on to our second portion of our meeting, 02/2020. The recommendation that the Planning Advisory Committee recommend that council approve site plan control agreement 171 King Street West, file number SPC 2020-02. If I could have somebody move that so we can discuss it, please.
I can do that, Teresa.
Thank you, Leanne. Seconded by Brett. Thank you. And 171 King Street West, better known as the Daniels lot, for those who, I guess everybody knows that. But yeah, with that, Matthew, if I could just have you discuss your report further.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So what you have before you this evening is the site plan control, both report and agreement for 171 King Street West, which will be a 3-story, 16-unit apartment building. The first story will be indoor parking, and then the 2 stories above will be apartments. There are 2 1-bedroom units, 10 2-bedroom units, and 4 3-bedroom units. And then there'll be secure pedestrian entrance from King Street and secure vehicle entrance from Water Street. We, as this has evolved and we've continued having conversations with the developer, we did have a visitor parking, loading and drop-off area specified at the back of the building, outside the building, but on the property itself. So that way any drop-offs, pickups, deliveries, things like that can occur off the street without having to obstruct traffic on Water Street. So we started this process back in November of 2018 with a pre-consultation visit with the developer, as well as their planners and engineers and Pickleville town staff, to just watch through the possible development and any questions or concerns we might have had. So coming out of that, there was 2 minor variances that were discussed at Committee of Adjustment and approved. One was for a reduction of 1 vehicle parking space from 20 to 19 overall on the site, as well as the increase of density of units on the site itself. And so both were considered by Committee of Adjustment, both were accepted, and then continuing to work through the planning process. So there's been a number of engineering reports that have gone back and forth between the developer as well as the town, and the town has each of those reports peer reviewed. So we have our own set of engineers and or specialists that look at each report, go back and forth with the developer and their engineers to ensure that everything that might be of a concern or consideration is covered. And once they have dealt with all of the issues and staff are comfortable, then we accept the report. So before you this evening, there's several reports that we went through in developing this. One was the servicing report, and there was just a slight change that occurred today, and that is connecting the sanitary and water main to Water Street as opposed to King Street. That was in a previous plan, and as we continue to develop it, we wanted to make sure that the storm was being not dealt with strictly on the property, but actually through a storm sewer. And so the decision was made to put the storm out to King Street. As part of that plan, they decided to also put the water main and sanitary out to King Street. But on further analysis, the reduction in the interruption to traffic, as well as just being able to do it in a more economical fashion, the decision was to make the sanitary and water main onto Water Street. So this most recent plan, which is a combination of a couple of prior plans, is going through peer review. I spoke with our engineers this afternoon. It will be done before Monday. And so they don't foresee any major issues because there wasn't any contentious issues other than the stormwater management, which isn't changing between the report that we had yesterday and the report that we have today. So, so we're comfortable from that perspective. And certainly if there's any issues, then we won't bring it forward to council for final approval. So that's kind of where we are with servicing and stormwater management. We also had their engineer look at how the cars can move within the building itself because it's interior parking, as well as coming in and out of the building off of Water Street. So certainly there was understanding of, do we have the necessary aisle space? Are the parking spaces deep enough and wide enough to accommodate cars? Things like that. And so that was presented. McIntosh and Perry did the peer review on that. And after a couple of questions back and forth, there was no major issues. So no major sightline concerns from the when you're leaving the building or coming into the building on Water Street, not concerned about being able to make the corner. There is 5 meters basically from the back of the building until the edge of the sidewalk. And so certainly that's about 15 feet where you can start to make your corner and whatnot. And also, as I mentioned earlier, there is 1 visitor parking spot that runs up kind of beside the building at the back. So, so that provides enough sight line and turning radius for that as well. Another study that we had done was a noise brief, and just wanting to make sure that we're not concerned about this building causing noise, but we are concerned about the residents having infiltration of noise from King Street and just the surrounding area. And so I wanted to make sure that the construction materials that are being used will have the desired effect of reducing sound infiltration. And again, that was peer reviewed by McIntosh Perry, and they had no issues with that. Finally, we have the site plan site and landscape plan, and that was included in your package. On there, it identifies really the situation or where the building will be contained on the lot itself. You can see it's over to one side of, and it's not directly in the middle of the lot. And that was to accommodate that visitor parking that I mentioned about earlier. When we're also taking a look at the site plan, you can see that the benches on either side of the building on King Street, and then a wrought iron fence behind those benches. So one of the things that you'll read in the report and in the agreement is that the wrought iron fence would actually be 2.5 meters tall, so about 8 feet. And that was important to us, that no one would be able to scale or climb it, especially with a bench sitting in front of it. If it was only going to be 6 feet, then you're at about a 4-foot kind of climb over rate at that point, which we certainly didn't want to encourage people to do. The reason for the fencing is we didn't want to make this as an alleyway that you could walk through and connect over to Water Street. And we believe the wrought iron fence will actually provide a nice touch to the downtown area and to make it look quite nice and good. When you're also taking a look at the building, you can see how the parking spaces line up. You can see the common areas on the east and west side of the building, as well as where that exact the visitor parking at the back will be. The gate that leads from the visitor parking and into that common area that then also leads into the building from the side entrance as well. On the east side of the building at the back, there'll be a gate there as well. Really, there's no reason to be on that side of the building, but gate access was just for maintenance and that sort of thing. One thing that we did discuss with the developer is currently there's an asphalt sidewalk to the south of the property on Water Street, and we would like that reinstated to be concrete to match what is immediately west of the property. We think that's an improvement, and certainly appreciative of that acceptance of that request. So really, when you take a look at that, exactly how that looks, I did want to show the committee, and I have to stress that this is not the final look of the building. There's a couple of changes, but I am going to share with you the conceptual drawing that was used just to get your feedback on that. And let me. Okay, so in front of you right now, you should be able to see kind of a front and side view of the building. You'll notice that there's a couple of differences from the elevations that you have in your package, which are the newest versus this one. This was an iteration that was kind of at the end of mid through 2019. And so since then, cornices have been added to the top at the front of the building, as well as running partway down the side where you see the brick at the top. That canopy now is much smaller and doesn't require pillars in the sidewalk itself, as well as the stone on the side actually comes up to the top of the door on the side. So that was a big part of what we wanted to put in the agreement, as well as making sure that was noted in the report, is the front of the building, what you see in the gray areas in front of you, will be a stone. The rest will be a brick. And then you can see exactly kind of how that roof line goes. And again, it will have cornices at the top. That wraps around the side for a certain number of meters. And then it transitions to a stone and non-combustible siding on both sides. When you take a look at the back of the building, again, you have that stone, but pretty much the back of the building is the non-combustible siding. So those are kind of just, we wanted to give you a feel for what that building is quite possibly going to look like. Very much kind of matching what you're seeing here in the elevations. The elevations are the most recent iterations that we have. And as I mentioned, noting where stone, brick, and non-combustible siding will be. So I think I've covered the vast majority of the report. We talked about the barriers on King Street. We talked about the exterior of the building. Waste pickup the waste room itself is at the front of the building. However, it's a storage room only. And when you take a look at how it works through the building, so the garbage is up here at the top. They'll pull the garbage carts through the garage. It with these types of buildings, the municipality does not collect the garbage, but it's done through a private contractor, and that will be picked up at the back of the building at a pre-scheduled time. So making sure we don't want garbage sitting out on King Street, which would also make it difficult to pick up and whatnot. So wanted to touch on that point as well. And with the information, the attachments that you had today, you had the site plan, which you're looking at right here. You had the elevations. And again, I quite refer to this because it's the newest design of what it looks like and clearly identifies the materials that will be used on the outside of the building. The draft site plan agreement, as well as the Xander plan report that we used for the minor variance application. And so I want to include that because it provided quite a bit of context as to exactly how this building fits in with its neighborhood and its neighbors to the east and the west. And certainly we thought it was important to share that. Even though it was part of the minor variance, it certainly covered a lot of the topics that how it is going to fit in the neighborhood. So without further ado, I'll stop sharing my screen and hand it back to the chair.
Thank you, Matthew. Mayor Todd? You're on mute.
Thanks very much, Madam Chair. Just wanted to thank Sean and Matthew for the very thorough report. And I really want to thank Stefano Ferrante, the developer here, who brought this project forward a couple of years ago when he approached me for looking for some opportunities here in town. This is a great one for us. Can't really thank the developer enough for pushing through with this. This is a significant, I think it's about a $4 million project for the heart of downtown Prescott. And it's an investment at a time when, of course, everything is so uncertain with the economy everything surrounding COVID-19. So it's fantastic to see this at the stage it's in now and moving forward into hopefully a construction phase in the days to come. Also want to thank the developer for adding the cornices. Raised that one when they first brought the initial design forward about a year and a half ago. Just thought it would kind of tie in a little better to the downtown. So you can't see it very well with the design here, but it's going to help tie the building in to some of the existing structures downtown and make a nice blend. And I can't say enough for the design either. I like the incorporation of the stone and the brick. It will sort of be reminiscent, I think, of the facade we used for the new fire hall as well. So I think it's going to blend in nicely to the downtown. And of course, the big thing is everything has been handled very, very well with town staff. Everything meets our planning requirements as well. And we're going to be bringing new residents right into downtown Prescott, which of course we really need. And that Daniels lot has basically been empty since I think 1989. So this is actually a significant achievement for Prescott and for the downtown. One of the most significant developments on King Street in a very long time. So just think it's great that we're at this point. It's a really nice shot of good news for our local economy, and I'm really glad to see it get to this point. Thanks staff and thank the developer and his team for working together and getting us to this point. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments? Jim, if you will.
Thanks, Chair. Actually, I agree with you. Great looking building. I think it's going to be an excellent addition to the downtown. Site plan looks very well done. Process question, does the site plan go to council with a bylaw approved by council and then it's ready for signature? And then is the town in a position to issue a building permit after that? Are there any other outstanding issues?
Matthew?
So yes, the intention is to take this forward as soon as it's approved to council at the next possible meeting. If that's tonight, then the next possible meeting is June 1st. The one thing that we are able to issue a building permit. However, it would be a conditional building permit because still a record of site condition hasn't been provided for this. So that's why you see in number 3, the approved record of site condition received by the Ministry of Environment prior to occupancy being granted. Our understanding, it's a regulatory item at this moment, and I believe the minister just has to sign off on a particular regulation change, which will allow for the issuance of this. However, we would only issue a conditional permit with the understanding that if the Ministry of Environment does not provide that or requires any changes, then it's the requirement of the developer to make those changes and make it right upon that. And so that was certainly worked into this agreement. Everything else we feel has been covered and are comfortable with.
Thank you, Chair. Matthew.
Thank you.
Teresa, if I may.
Certainly, Leanne.
Thank you. I totally agree what Mayor Todd and Jim was just saying about a good addition to our downtown core. I did have a couple questions regarding not putting sprinkler system in the new building. I don't know if Sean can answer that. And the second question is the common area. Is this going to be grass or is it going to be interlocking?
Sean, do you want to, Sean, if you will, address the first one?
Yeah, I understand this. The sprinkler system's not required under code for this. It's not a big enough building.
Okay, thank you.
And to kind of follow up on that, the servicing and stormwater management plan did cover how it would be serviced from a fire perspective. And there is sufficient number of fire hydrants in the area to be able to support that from a regulatory perspective. So it's not required on the internal of the building, but they did address it from firefighting capability on the outside of the building. And then in terms of the second item, the servicing plan calls for actually river stone in the two areas beside the building, simply because grass is going to be very difficult to grow, given where the heights of the buildings and those locations. And so that was the recommendation from the engineers and as part of the servicing plan.
Can I have a follow-up, if I may?
Yeah, for sure.
So Riverwalk is not necessarily, you're not able to put benches or picnic tables or anything else there. I'm just thinking that, you know, the common area could be a gathering place when and if we can. Yeah. And yeah, that's just something to consider. You know, maybe some interlocking with a bench or picnic tables where seniors or families can gather, whoever's in the building. Thank you.
Absolutely.
As a matter of process, Matthew, speaking of the fire controls and regulations, is that, I know that it's all done with the engineers and such too, but would our fire chief have BUA as well?
Yes, correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, but we have distributed the reports as well as this development to all of our internal departments to make sure that no one had any issues, from clearing the sidewalks to fire department, things like that. And so, yeah, we do that internal process as well.
That's correct, Matthew. The fire department has a copy of the plans already, and they had no concerns from the first layout of plans, and nothing that's come in since then would affect firefighting. So.
Wonderful. Leslie, do you have any comments you want to make on this project?
No, I don't think so. It's pretty straightforward. It looks beautiful.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I think I do want to thank the staff. The report's very, very thorough, and the developer, of course. I know people with that hole being there the last few months, I'm sure people were quite afraid that it was a stall of some sort, for whatever reason. So it's very, very exciting that this is happening, and 16 units in our downtown is certainly a game changer for sure. So this is a very exciting time. Matthew, you did mention that like number 3, it is all pending a little bit in the Ministry of Environment, but you see no issues there anymore, just to put everybody's mind at ease.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was contamination on the site. That's not a question. When they demolished the Daniels Hotel, some of the hotel remnants were just left in the ground. So, but this particular site, they went all the way down to bedrock. The bedrock isn't that deep there. And so there's no further contamination issue that we have with the site. So one of the regulations said, well, you have to go down to the groundwater and test the groundwater. And so we had a little bit of hard time understanding why that would be, since this is sitting on a complete piece of bedrock. So that regulation was kind of brought forward, and they had that discussion at the ministry level, and they agree that if it's being serviced by town and town water, and you're sitting on bedrock, then what is the point of going all the way down? So so certainly that was kind of the context of this, and why it's kind of taken a little bit of a while to get through, because certainly government, we all work a little bit slower than one would hope, but certainly we see that, and so that's why we put the condition that as soon as we receive the record of site condition, because the regulation is changing just a little bit, then we would make sure that that's there before providing our occupancy approval. So at no point would we put anybody at risk. If we don't have that record of site condition, then we wouldn't grant occupancy. And so really what that's in there saying.
Well, Matthew, if you could, since you're our contact with the developers, Stefano, please express our appreciation of how beautiful, how well he matched our heritage downtown, and yeah, and how pleased overall that this is still a go ahead.
Thank you
With
very
that,
much.
sorry, go ahead.
No, thank you very much. And actually, one of the planners that have been working on the project is on the phone this evening. That's Chris Clark, and so certainly has heard the comments from the committee this evening, and we thank you for that.
Wonderful.
Yep, I haven't really spoken up too much. You know, everything seemed pretty straightforward, so I've just been sort of making notes and sitting here. But yeah, I'll just reiterate. You know, we think this is going to be a really good addition to the downtown. You know, part of the reason for choosing this site is, you know, there's lots of commercial development around, and you know, yeah, we needed a variance for parking, but at the end, we hope, you know, this is going to promote a lot of active transportation, people walking and biking between uses rather than having to take their car to get, you know, to a nearby store or something like that. So, you know, I think in the end, you know, this is really going to help the town once, you know, everything starts to get moving again and businesses start to open. So, you know, a little bit of time getting here, but overall, I think everything went really well. And I want to thank the town too. They were really helpful throughout the process, and, you know, no surprises came up that, you know, threw things off the rails. So it was really nice to just, you know, work through it, and, you know, now we're here and we're done. So good to see.
Thank you. So unless anyone else has any last comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Wonderful. Thank you. Oh, good stuff. Yay, that's exciting. Moving on to number 6 of our agenda, new business. Does anyone have any new business they'd like to bring to the foreground? Leslie, I would like to formally welcome you to our group, and thank you very, very much for throwing your hat in and volunteering for this. We do appreciate it. I'm assuming, I should have asked this before, not a very good chair, I guess, but Matthew or Kim has supplied you with the binder of orientation, that kind of thing?
In an orientation,
Yeah.
I don't think I've had that type of thing, but I'm not sure.
Okay, well,
It's been a
Kim,
little
I
chaotic.
hate to put you on the spot, but we do have, Leslie, just a nice binder that kind of gives a little bit of history and orientation and that kind of thing. Kim, if
Okay.
you could arrange to.
Through you,
yeah.
Madam Chair, I can send her the council orientation binder. I believe I'd sent the terms of reference and
Yes.
the code of conduct, that type of thing.
Yes.
wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Perfect.
have those. Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's good. That's great. Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.
Any other new business? Okay, so with that, we're moving on to number 7, adjournment. And who would like to make that motion?
I can do that, Teresa.
Thank you, Lan. You want to get back to your pool.
That's why her video's not on. She's sitting in it right now.
And somebody second that?
I'll second it, Teresa.
Thank you, Joe. Very good. All in favor?
Hi.
Bye.
Wonderful. Have a good, nice, cool evening somewhere, everyone. Thank you very much for your time.
You
Take care.
too.
Everyone, take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.